The A6 X2 has been one of the most exciting releases, and there's more coming from Supernote in this year. And the Tab Mini C is here representing Boox. It was released about halfway through last year. It's about 6 months old now. It's still a really excellent tablet. And for a lot of people, this will be the most versatile and the most useful device, but for a lot of people, this will be the device that they want. And the Tab Mini C is here to represent Boox, and this will be the first of probably some quite epic battles between these two devices. The A6 X2 is at this point representing all of Supernote. So you could see this as being the Boox platform versus the Supernote platform and where they're headed. This Tab Mini C is representing the best of Boox because it essentially has the same functionality as the Note F3C and the Tab Ultra C Pro. And this is representing all of Supernote because hopefully we'll have an A5 X2 later on, the larger size device, and also we hope an A4 X2 as well, which will be as large as a piece of printer paper. That'll be really exciting. So it's kind of like, where are they both now and where are they headed? And personally, I think that we're looking at the two gold standards here. We're looking at the gold standard e-ink notebook replacement, and we're looking at the gold standard e-ink iPad replacement. They both have e-ink screens, but that's almost where the similarity ends. Okay, well, they both use the Wacom EMR standard of stylus technology. And in my opinion, that is the gold standard for digital styluses. It makes your writing look neat, and it does make the devices a pleasure to draw on. Although you can use the stylus from Boox on the Supernote, I probably wouldn't recommend using the Supernote on the Boox because it does have the ceramic nib which could scratch this screen here. But the Wacom EMR is very, very fast and it's very, very accurate, and it doesn't need charge either. Bit of a technical comparison now, the Tab Mini C is heavier, and also the battery life is not going to last you nearly as long. The Supernote is quite considerably lighter. It's also thinner as well. The Boox does have a front light, which you really do need on a color ink screen, as the background color is so dark. You can probably see that even with that front light on about 50%, it's still looking a little bit darker than the screen with no front light at all. The color ink screen does need lots of light to get the kind of muted ink colors to pop. Although, as with all e-ink, it does look its best when you find some good natural ambient light. In full sun, for instance. And one problem with that is that the light is another consumer of your already precious battery with Boox. Supernote have left out that front light on purpose, and that keeps the top layer of the screen as close as possible to the e-ink beneath it itself. And that adds to the sensation of it being like writing on real paper. Really, as I write, you see it almost kind of catch the light. And if you look closely in at the side of the Boox device, you can see there's a slight shadow, because that is actually the space it needs to have those front lights firing in from the side of the screen and then reflected down and reflected back up off the ink into your eyes. So there is a trade-off for sure for having that front light. Supernote does have a more pen and paper-like screen feel. The Boox Tab Mini has a smoother screen protector on it, even compared to the Note F3C, for instance. It does give better clarity, but it feels less like paper. Let's have a look now in a notepad and see if there's any noticeable difference in what we call the pen latency, which is the time it takes between you actually making the stroke and the ink actually appearing on the screen. Often this is called the pen response or the screen response. It is lightning quick. I want to say it feels like the Supernote is slightly faster now, but it is near enough to make no difference to your everyday use of the device at all. I'm pretty sure I'd need to slow that down to more than 100th of a second to really see the difference there. Another difference is that there's no expandable storage on the Tab Mini C, although there are on other Boox devices. You do have plenty of storage though, with a total of 64 gigabytes, which should be fine for most e-ink users. Should you want to carry a massive library around with you, the Supernote does now have an expandable TF card slot or micro SD card slot, which can handle up to 2 terabytes. Also, you can replace the battery in the Supernote should 2 years down the line this become not very efficient anymore. You can't do that with the Tab Mini C. So really, with that expandable storage and with the replaceable battery, you could be reading on this device for the rest of your life. Now, also, the case being magnetic directly behind does cause some problems here on the Tab Mini C. If I just take a blank page and draw a few lines, It is reasonably well controlled, but you can maybe just see that there are some issues in some areas of that screen where you've got these slight wobbles just here, for instance, and just here and down the bottom here as well. I think there is a slight wobble up here as well, yeah. Whereas on the Supernote, they've actually decided to put the magnets on the chin and the forehead of the device so that they are well out of the way of the screen. When I now draw a line straight across, you can see there's hardly any wobble, if any at all. It's excellent. This is just another indication of the way that Supernote have thought about making your writing experience as pleasurable, with as few disruptions, as few niggles as possible. Now, I personally think that Supernote is the more attractive design, although of course that's very subjective. And I hope they carry on this idea of modularity to give us options of different backs, maybe integrated cases. You could have a case that doesn't need to be held on by a magnet, it's actually screwed onto the back of the device, or other possible add-ons which would allow you to refresh the device aesthetically and maybe to make some excellent and useful accessories. For instance, they have pogo pins, and I asked them if there was any word about the presence of those pogo pins, and they just said, well, it's a possible thing in the future that perhaps there might be a dedicated keyboard case, perhaps there might be other accessories as well which could talk to the device with those pogo pins. They're also releasing the specifications of that, so you could actually make your own 3D printed add-ons where you could work a case with the same drill holes, and they're also intending to let us buy these magnets so we could make our own cases as well. So there's loads of great things that you can really make this device your own. There are two versions of the A6 X2. This is the crystal edition, which is held on by screws, and then there's a white version which is held on by clips. So I would suggest if you wanted to mod this in the future, you should be going for the crystal version, and they aren't interchangeable. And Supernote do make really excellent accessories. There is nothing wrong with the way that the Boox device looks. To get this into an already existing kind of mold, they've just added a bigger battery by making the back of it kind of bulge out a little bit. And that's noticeable, you are aware of that. It's making the device heavier, and it's making it just that little bit less sleek than the previous kind of this size and this form factor of device. The cases are absolutely fine, but they've got that feeling of inexpensive fake leather. Nothing wrong with it at all. It's not the cheapest feeling thing I've ever felt, but it isn't the premium option that the Supernote case is. Supernote make excellent accessories. Now, to compare their price and their value, well, they're both similarly priced. You're looking at about £450 depending on the configuration you go with, although it's possible to buy just the Supernote device for only £300, and then you could perhaps get a third-party stylus, and the cheapest of those are going to be about £30. So that's the cheapest way to start using that device. The Boox always ships with the pen, and pretty much you're going to want to look to buy that in a bundle with the case. It's not really that much cheaper to buy without the case anyway. But they're both very different value propositions. Boox have made an Android device which just happens to have an e-ink screen, so you get the benefits of eye comfort and that great direct sunlight viewing experience, whereas Supernote have made a device which slips into your professional world as your planner and your notebook. Both are very compelling, but you have to decide which of those uses is truly going to give you a high enough value for that high price point. Now, talking about the apps, both have excellent native reading apps. They both have great digest features or annotation features. For instance, I can highlight a whole area of text with a simple gesture here on the tab Mini C. I can even color code that highlight, and then that will be in my table of contents along with any annotations I might choose to make within that highlight. Just using these parentheses on the Supernote puts a piece of text straight into your digest, and then appears here in your digest. Again, along with any notes that you might have chosen to add on that page as well. Both have really great reading views, and I like now they've added automatic rotate, so you can very quickly make it a comfortable size to read. And Boox have their article mode, which means that it will scroll through the device, moving down the columns of text like so. And of course it also has auto rotate in just the same way to give you a large enough piece of text to read. You can read a wide range of different formats on the Supernote and on the Boox of course, but the only third-party app that you can actually use to read here on the Supernote is Kindle, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's, if I was just to choose one, that's where I'd want to read, and it does work perfectly fine. Whereas Boox, you can feel free to download any reading app that you like. I'm enjoying this Santantango so far, but it's weird that there's no paragraphs in it at all. You can maybe see there that here's where the GPU, the graphics processing unit in the Tab Mini C, really pulls it away. The Supernote for a lot of uses like any Android apps. You can see the actual animation here on this side, and you just get this kind of weird gobbled stuttering effect here on the Supernote. Could go for any reading library that I wanted here as well. I can also go ahead and download my books straight onto the device here from the internet, which is a great use, I think. And although it does have a limited web browser on here, you couldn't log into something, and you can't really search to get around as easily as you can on the Tab Mini C. It's an open Android system, meaning you can really personalize and make this your own device. Whereas you are stuck in the use cases that Supernote have designed. They're very well designed use cases, of course, but you're stuck. Talking about the Notes app now. The Boox Note app is absolutely extensive, but it's not always well thought through, and it is not intuitive. The changes that they make to the note-taking app, they are regular, and they try their best to keep up with the feature set of all of their rivals. So when Supernote adds something or Remarkable adds something, it very quickly comes to the Boox platform. But sometimes those changes can be a little bit jarring. If you're used to working in a certain way and they change that, then it can be quite off-putting. Whereas the Supernote is just a really well thought out note-taking app with just the right amount of features and just the right amount of options. And people really love the way that you can make your own contents page here. And so here the intention is, as I use this device, I will be making links out to other important documents here from this contents page, which is essentially going to be the home page of the device for me that I can quickly get back to from a single swipe down on this sidebar. It's great. I've just found that you can't seem to link to drawings though, which is a bit of a disappointment. Now, as for drawing, you can draw really quite well here on the Boox note-taking app. They've got a new pencil, has both pressure and tilt support. That's excellent, so you can make some really nice drawings here. I've got lots of content about drawing on it here. And they've added a whole new drawing app here on the Supernote, which I have to say is excellent. It doesn't have tilt support, but apart from that, it's fabulous. That's what I wanted to see companies bring, a dedicated drawing app which has dedicated drawing tools. It's fabulous, and I cannot wait to see that on a full-size A4 tablet. Boox, however, wins for working with typed text. The experience of typing on a Supernote is slow, and so you would need to be a really confident typist to keep a good speed up. Whereas with the fast screen mode options, and you don't have any screen mode options on the A6 X2, with the faster screen mode options, you can type here and the text appears as you hit the key. You can also type into any word processing app of your choice, which for me is an absolute no-brainer for working with typed text, to be working straight into the cloud version of that file. Both do handwriting recognition really well, but the Supernote, I think, has the edge on that with the way that they've implemented this automatic handwriting recognition, or I think they call it real time. And the nice thing about that is doing it in the background. It's done quite well. I didn't get handwriting though, so I'll just go there and see why they wouldn't have got that, and just print it a bit more neatly. And it's recognized. However, on the Boox device, you do have handwriting recognition in the Notes app, and it is just as accurate. But I'd say the way to use the handwriting recognition is actually not to use the Notes app to do that and then copy that and paste that elsewhere, but just to use the handwriting recognition, which is built into the on-screen keyboard, because that's really quite good. You have that option here on the Supernote as well. So I think it's just slightly edging it in terms of if you want to write with the handwriting recognition for the Supernote. Let's talk about the two companies now, and let's not forget that this is only the 5th device that Supernote have actually launched, and as they did that, they were making statements about that this device will not make their previous devices obsolete. They made sure to let everyone who's invested in the previous generation know that they're still going to bring those same software experiences to their older devices. They even gave a 50% discount to users of their very first generation of devices because they felt that they'd been unable to bring the number of software changes to that older Linux operating system that they had planned. So Supernote are a company that develops both their software and their hardware in the open, with the collaboration of their customers. Boox, however, they released 9 devices in the last year, even superseding a device which had only been available for 6 months. There's a choice to be made about sustainability, modularity, and long-term value. Or if you want to enjoy tech in the way that it's generally been consumed until now, with new releases at a very high pace, and that makes you constantly lust after the latest and greatest, even though the device that you only have had for half a year is still working perfectly. That's your choice. What do you want to invest in? Boox do support their devices with updates for up to 3 years, but Supernote are aiming for longer than that. They're looking at you using a device for a decade. Now, honestly, I think that there's enough differences here for you to find a place in your life for both of these devices. Of course, if money was no object. But perhaps a better bet would be to invest in one company at a large size and the other at a smaller size. Decide if you want to use apps on a larger screen or apps on a smaller screen, or if you want a notebook replacement at a large size or a smaller size. Decide which is going to be the ideal combo for you. I'm probably a big Boox and a little Supernote sort of guy, especially as this little A6 X2 Nomad edition does give me wanderlust. Because yes, if you're wondering, e-ink is that good.